right. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are joining us from. Welcome back to our Tribe Transition webinar series. My name is Heather Deere, and I am the Director of Family Engagement. And welcome to one of our most highly anticipated webinars of the summer, which is Move-In and Orientation Know Before You Go. We are going to dive into all of the logistics related to move-in and an overview of orientation for both students and families. We have True Expert here on to talk about move-in and orientation, but before we dive in, just a couple of housekeeping reminders. Yes, this session is being recorded and will be shared with families once it is available. If you want to know as soon as I upload this recording, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel and that will be there waiting for you, but you can likely expect to receive an email if you're joining us live with the recording tomorrow of both today's recording and yesterday's dining conversation. If you are listening to this recording, you can always visit our webinars homepage to watch or listen to any of the recorded sessions that we've done this summer. And finally, next week is going to be our deep dive into family orientation overview. So we're going to cover it high level today, but next week you can expect to learn all about the nuts and bolts, logistics, schedule of family orientation. Speaking of family orientation, I do just want to remind everyone on the call, it is so helpful for us to know if you are coming to family orientation. So if you haven't registered yet, please do so. You can check any of your recent emails from Family Engagement to find that link to register. And it really just helps us plan for how much coffee to order, how many parking spaces are going to be taken up by families and guests, and helps the entire campus prepare for your arrival. Without a doubt, families say that family orientation allows them to leave campus comfortable and secure, knowing that their students are cared for and supported. So if you're still wondering, do we need to come? Should we come? I highly recommend. It's going to give you that really strong foundation so that your students are prepared and you're prepared when they call and ask some questions. With that, though, I do have a student intern who would really want me to tell you about our Instagram handle. So if you haven't followed us on Instagram yet, please do. We have an undergraduate student intern who has been managing our social media and has some really fun move-in and orientation content prepared and waiting for you. So encourage your student to follow us or for you to follow us on Instagram as another way to stay in the know. Of course, everything that we share with you on social media, we also share via email. So if you're not active on Instagram, no worries. You won't be missing anything, but it is a fun way to keep in touch with us and with William and Mary as we head into such an exciting season for everyone. So with those quick reminders out of the way, I am going to go ahead and turn it over to the person who started this series with us this summer. If you'll recall our Tribe Guide 101 session, Lauren Garrett with Student Transition Engagement Programs.
Hello, everyone. It's so nice to see so many familiar names on the call, and I'm looking forward to meeting everyone when you arrive on campus, whether it be through move-in, through orientation, or even the family weekend processes. I'm going to start sharing my screen. We do have some lovely slides. I'm going to make sure that Heather and team can see them before we get started. So here's what we're going to talk about. We have this afternoon's timetable split into a few different stages. We're going to talk through preparing for your campus arrival, what you need to do, what your student needs to do. We're going to chat through the actual stages of move-in. What do those processes and steps look like in a little bit more detail? We're going to do an overview of family orientation, just high level, as Heather mentioned, because next week you have a much more in-depth look at that program. And then I'm going to give you some highlights and insights into new student orientation so that you are prepared to support your new student as they start navigating this transition physically to campus as well. And then no webinar would be complete without some next steps so that you are prepared for what happens post move-in, post orientation on the student experience side. Okay, so with that, we're going to start chit-chatting about preparing for our campus arrival. So three big pieces, three big task areas that you're going to want to accomplish. First is talking. As those of you who have been partaking in the family, the book, The book series. Oh my goodness, my words have just left me.
I think
Heather.
she is referencing on the same page a William and Mary Family Book Club.
Yes, exactly. For those of you that have been participating in the book club, one of the big pieces of advice that we give families in general around this time of transition is to open up dialogue, open up conversation points with your students, and this is no different. It's really important for you to have conversations with your student as you prepare to come to campus for move-in day, for orientation, about to have conversations around expectations. What is that day looking like? Do they know where to find resources, or do they feel like they have a good handle on what offices might be available? Hopefully, that first office that when you say what might be available, who might you talk to if, hopefully one of those first offices that they say is, well, the STEP offices have been calling or has been contacting us quite a lot. I think maybe I'd start with them. That's a good and right answer. Having a conversation with them about wellness. Do they know and can they recognize in themselves when they start to feel stressed or anxious? And then what is their response to that, especially during orientation, especially with all the information that's going to be shared with them? Do they know how to advocate for themselves with their orientation aides, et cetera, as they move through that process? Finances. Talking about, do they know how to access funds? Do they know what their budget might be in terms of joining clubs or organizations? And just talking about basic money management, conversations around laundry, not just do they know how to do it, do they have the supplies that they need, do they know maybe how frequently they need to or ought to do laundry, etc. And then having a conversation about the see you later. And this is one of those points that often can provide a little bit of emotional response. But what does that see you later look like for your family? It may look different, and that it might be hugs. There might even be some tears on the day. And for some, it might just feel like a normal everyday occurrence with a see you later and look forward to connecting on Sunday when we have our weekly phone call. But making sure that expectations are in place, not just for the move-in day, but also thinking strategically about what will communication look like over the course of the next few days, weeks, months, as your student is navigating this journey. So conversations aside, all of that touchy-feely emotional piece aside, let's get into some logistics and let's think about practicality of packing. For those that have experienced William and Mary's campus before, for those who might have experience within their own residential university setting before, stairs are a thing when it comes to move-in. And so you're going to want to think about practical move-in solutions. Smaller boxes that are packed full but are still fairly lightweight. Stairs, very smart. Reusable containers. We love those little zippable duffels that can be used for laundry toting, that could be used for weekend visits. Very accessible, and great to smush and put in the back of a closet should your student need it during the course of the semester. And we also recommend that you label belongings with your student's last name and their destination. Because as we talk about the move-in process and we talk about that time frame that you have for move-in, you want to make sure as you're pulling things out of your vehicle that if an extra pair of hands grabs something, or if by chance you happen to leave something on a sidewalk, that item can be delivered to your student or returned to your student in a prompt manner. So think about practicality, think about reusability, and think about labeling as you're packing that vehicle to come through the move-in line. And then lastly, you're going to want to make sure that your student has printed or downloaded the appropriate materials that they'll need for the move-in process. You'll want to make sure that they've printed out or downloaded their QR code for their actual check-in process. You're going to want to make sure that they've downloaded their mobile credential, their tribe card in that mobile format, that they have that downloaded and available, and your move-in route sign. You want to make sure that that is downloaded or printed. So when someone says, where are you moving into? Where are you headed? You can hold up that sign or that image on your phone and say, we're following the pink route. And then we can make sure you get where you need to be going. Okay, Heather, you're so diplomatic. Just jump in.
Thank you. Um, Before we moved on from the preparing, I wanted to share just a little bit of like Heather's pro tips when it comes to
Love
packing.
it.
Um, so Of course, being around college move-ins for years, we don't have to say how many, I have seen some tried and true solutions that I want to pass on to all of you. First and foremost, I know we've been getting a lot of questions about how do we get all of our stuff to fit in one car with all of us. And I know there will be questions about two cars, which Lauren and I will cover in depth. Don't worry, that's coming. But one of the easiest solutions is to think about how you maximize that storage space in your one vehicle. And I can tell you so much space is taken up by packing materials, as in, like, you buy that new box fan and you pack it in the car in its box. There's the fan, there's the styrofoam, there's the cardboard box, there's plastic packaging. Anything that you know for sure your student is going to use, you're going to want to take out of that store-bought packaging for a couple of reasons. It's going to save you space in the car, so you're going to get back some good cubic square footage of space. But also, you may not want to go back down those stairs to take all of that to the dumpster. There will be plenty of dumpsters placed around all of the residential halls so that you can just hop back outside and toss them away. But as you're unpacking, you'll notice that you're building a small mountain of packing materials behind you that someone will inevitably have to walk back down the stairs, back outside into the heat and humidity, and take to the dumpster. So if there's anything that you know for sure your student is going to bring with them, be sure to take it out of that packaging and save yourself some time, space, and trips down to the dumpster. The other piece, I know Lauren mentioned reusable containers. We both are really big fans of the blue moving bags that you can get from any online retailer. So those pack down flat, but they also can be worn as a backpack if you search that, so that you've got one on the back, one on each arm, and you're really maximizing those trips up to the hall. Another thing that I always tell families to bring with them that is kind of surprising and you may not find on a normal move-in day or packing list, is a tarp or like a plastic painter sheet. And this serves two purposes. One, we are going to cover your unloading zone time. And, we are going to encourage you, and Lauren already did, to label your students' belongings with last name and room number. But it's also nice to just have a square patch that you're like, okay, we're going to put this tarp down on this dirt or this grass, and we're going to put all of our students' belongings on this tarp. And this is ours. We know this is ours. But also, it's Williamsburg in August, and we love a afternoon thunderstorm around here. And they can pop up really at any time, come and go in about 5 minutes. And so that tarp or plastic sheet serves a dual purpose, that as you're unloading and you haven't yet gotten everything into the room, if one of those pop-up showers comes along, you're prepared with the supplies you need to protect your students' belongings as you get them back inside. Of course, for all of you, I would recommend extremely comfortable shoes. Make sure that they're tried and true. It's not the day to test out a new pair of tennis shoes if you've never worn them before, especially if you're going to be doing that much walking up and down stairs and to and from car, and also just generally around campus. Bring your reusable water bottle for everybody so that there are refilling stations in most every building so that you're staying hydrated. And finally, your student will make friends on the hall on the first day in the first hour if you come prepared with a small toolkit. So all of the things that you are purchasing that may require assembly that you don't realize requires assembly, or another family forgot it, it's a great way for them to introduce themselves to neighbors when they knock on the door because they hear that you have a rubber mallet, a hammer, or an electric screwdriver. So those are just a few of my tips. We can get into a little bit more after, but I wanted to mention that in the packing portion of our time together.
No, those are great ideas, Heather. And I think it's really important. You're not hearing us say, I'm going to reinforce around the toolkit. Not everyone needs to bring one. But if you have one that's handy and mobile, definitely helpful. And you can be the conduit for social connection. You never know. You never know who you're going to meet. So great thoughts. All right, we're going to move a little bit into the move-in stages and what you can expect. So if your student is living on campus and is considered what we would call a residential new student, your move-in process is going to be contactless. Your student should have a move-in appointment slated. And what we're going to ask is that you enter campus via Compton Drive off of Monticello Avenue no earlier than 15 minutes prior to your appointment. As you're moving down Compton, you're going to see that other cars are moving in that direction, and we will have, it will be single on this Thursday, which will mean that there will be 2 lanes available as we come through. Now, as we move through and we have those 15-minute appointments rolling, and you have arrived no earlier than 15 minutes, there's going to be a time check station. If you have arrived earlier than 15 minutes, you will be asked to depart the line and to stage yourself somewhere else. Typically, we'll send you over to the School of Ed to wait your turn to come back in line. This process only works if everyone abides by the process of arriving no earlier than 15 minutes prior. When your student reaches the actual staged route, there are 4 stops. There is a general student sort of check-in station. There's an orientation station. There's a family engagement station, and then there is the beloved Key Residence Hall station. As your student is moving through the line in your car, there are going to be volunteers along that route who are going to be stopping every once in a while and to check. Does your student have their mobile tribe card downloaded? And if they don't have it, do they have a picture ID with them? Do they have their QR code downloaded and ready? And do you know where you're headed once you have your key in terms of your color-coded route across campus? So those 3 things are going to be requested as we go through. As you and your student in that vehicle move through the 1, 2, 3, 4 stations, at the end, when you are sent out to move towards your residence hall, you're going to see student volunteers, our orientation aides, our orientation staff in their bright neon shirts holding color-coded route signs. And you will literally follow those signs to your destination. When you reach your destination, you will notice a mixture of personnel, William and Mary Police or local security, helping to usher you into unloading zones where you can then pull over, unload your vehicle onto that tarp or other plastic sheeting that Heather mentioned. If others start moving belongings into the hall, and the remaining driver of the vehicle move their car to the designated parking destination. All of the parking routes, as you will notice in their Google Map formats, has a parking destination assigned. And so once the vehicle has been parked in that parking destination, driver returns and can then help with the final move-in processes that might need to be there. Once you have everything in the room, obviously you can start unpacking, getting yourself settled. It is not typical that both roommates will move in at the same time or will have the same move-in appointment. Typically, they're staggered. And so you're going to want to encourage your student to have a conversation with their roommate about what is their timing, what does that look like, so that you can also give the roommate's family perhaps a little bit of privacy as they start to get settled and move in. And ultimately, that move-in process ends with a see you later by 7 p.m., which is when new student programming will kick off. I know that there have been some questions popping in. I don't know, Heather, if they're appropriate to answer at this point in time. I defer to you before we get too into the mix of things.
Let's hold questions until the end.
Sounds
I
good.
will note for families, this page says see you later by 7 p.m. Lauren and I are going to give some clarifying details on the see you later moment just a little bit later.
Perfect. Thank you. So for those that might have an earlier 8:15, 8:30 a.m. move-in appointment, you'll notice that then there's no designated time frame that you need to leave the residential space. We just simply ask that, again, you and your student sort of have a conversation with roommate family to make sure that everybody gets ample time and privacy to sort of settle in based off of needs and conversation. So again, that's part of that expectation conversation. So I'm sure now that I've raised debt, see you later with the 7 p.m. mark, everybody's sort of like, why 7 p.m.? What magically happens? Well, before we enter that conversation, let's talk about a little bit about what's happening for families once the move-in process is complete. Your students moved in, they're pseudo settled. We know that that's an ongoing process for many of our students. It won't magically happen just on that Thursday. But once your student has all their belongings in their space, what do families do next? So Heather, big pieces for families to know, especially in anticipation of next week's webinar.
Yeah, just a high level overview is that family orientation will take place from roughly 8:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. on Friday, August 21st. And we're going to start our morning all together, all over 3,000 of us in Kaplan Arena, which is our main basketball arena here on campus. And then after a hearty lunch break from 12 to 2 p.m., we will end our day at the School of Education. We have our Connections Fair, which is a tabling opportunity. We have roughly 40 offices, departments, and programs represented for you to visit, learn more about their offerings, and how your student can connect. Don't worry, I'm going to provide you a bag so that you can walk away with lots of giveaways from all of those offices and good resources to support your students. We also have breakout style, conference style information sessions happening at the same time. It's a choose your own adventure afternoon. So you're either visiting with our tables or you're popping in and out of sessions. We have 4 blocks of sessions and roughly 18 offerings of sessions. And one of the biggest questions I get is, we went today for admitted students and a lot of the titles look similar. Why should we come to family orientation? How is it different? The easiest way to say it is that when you attended Day for Admitted Students, you weren't sure if your student was coming to William and Mary, or maybe they were very close to making a decision, made the decision that day, but really that was an information educational opportunity. At family orientation, we're taking those programs and diving deeper. So, study abroad, for example. You probably learned about study abroad opportunities at Day for Admitted Students, but during family orientation, we're going to talk about the actual deadlines for this year, the actual application processes, the actual destinations your student could study abroad this year or in the next year. So, we're really going to take it into a practical mindset so that you're informed about all of these different topics that will come up for your student in the year, especially now that they're here at William and Mary. And I will say, I gave this feedback earlier, but consistent feedback from families, and I hear it on the day, at the end of the day, and then after in our evaluations, is that attending family orientation really helps them feel comfortable walking away from campus. It's such a big transition, and we want to make sure that you know about all of the resources in place to support your students. And families just say it's a fun time. So I would highly encourage that you attend family orientation. If you're not able to make it, I know that there are so many life circumstances that prevent a family from attending family orientation. We do our best to get as many of these sessions recorded so that you can watch them afterward. But if you haven't registered yet, please do so.
So, key takeaway, family orientation, a must. Woo! I got too excited there. I went all the way to the end. Okay, so families, you have a very comprehensive program that is slated for you, specifically tailored to your incoming sort of student support experience. And likewise, your students will be going through an orientation program that is tailored to their unique experience. So whether your student is a member of the class of 2030 and it's their first time attending college, or they're a transfer student, and maybe you've done this elsewhere, or they've attended a community college, and so they have a good feeling or understanding of sort of time commitment and academics. Regardless of that, new student orientation is going to be taking these differences and taking these experiences into account as we think through the programming that happens over the course of the next 4 to 5 days. Programming for residential new students will actually begin Thursday evening at 7 o'clock. And closer to about 7:15 or so, students will be gathered. They'll actually meet with their orientation aides, with their resident assistants. They'll talk through prime policies and things that they need to know, especially that first night in a new setting. And then we begin some social programming that evening so folks can begin to mix and mingle, begin to feel comfortable, get to know other folks who are living in their area, especially before primary programming begins the next day. And we start diving deep into some similar topics that Heather mentioned earlier: academics, involvement, engagement, community expectations, so on and so forth. If your student is actually commuting to campus, maybe is residing with you, residing elsewhere off campus, they will actually check in for orientation beginning on Friday morning at 8 a.m. in Sadler. And so this move-in process that we've just described obviously is not necessarily their experience, but it's important for you to know that their process for orientation will kickstart Friday morning. And you, as a commuter student family, are highly encouraged to join family orientation as it begins around 9 o'clock on that Friday, later on in that Friday morning. So it's a nice way to sort of make sure that they get to campus, make sure they get checked in, and then you both can start your programming then in parallel on Friday as well. All new students, regardless of whether they live on or off campus, will be fed during the new student orientation program. So starting Thursday at dinner, all new students to William & Mary, we will make sure that they get fed between the Commons Dining Hall or the Marketplace Dining Hall. They'll access either of those dining facilities using their tribe card, whether it's mobile or physical. And they'll go with their orientation groups based off of their orientation group schedule and their rotation. But breakfast, lunch, and dinner are all provided. And many of our programs actually also provide additional snacks. And usually those are the highlights. Let's be honest. The pizza, the ice cream, the cookies, those are the highlights when it comes to meals, typically during orientation. And so now I've talked a little bit about the tribe card, and there was messaging that went out yesterday about the fact that student IDs, our tribe cards, are now mobile, and students just need to download them to their mobile device, whether that's an Android or an iProduct or an Apple product, excuse me. Now, if your student by the Friday deadline requests to have a physical tribe card, they will actually receive their physical tribe card on Thursday between 9 and 4. They'll need to actually come to Sadler 368 to the window outside that office and pick up their tribe card in physical format. They will need to have a photo ID with them, and more information will go out in one of the upcoming Hot Topic newsletters to students about the physical tribe card pickup. If your student is a commuter student living off campus and is electing to do a physical tribe card, completes the form, etc., they'll actually receive their card when they check in at orientation that Friday morning. So coming through the line, if your student has elected to do a physical tribe card, they'll want to use a state-issued photo ID in order to pick up their room key. And that is an actual physical room key that all students will be receiving during the key pickup process. And so what happens during orientation? I've alluded to some social activities. I've alluded to some presentations. We know that there's going to be some nuts and bolts around academics and course registration that will be covered. And there's always an opportunity for students to meet one another, to start building out friend groups and meeting others who are in their residential communities. Orientation is actually a program that's completed with a student's residential community. So their orientation groups are based off of their living environments. And so you'll see once the orientation schedules go live based off of specific rotations that they're all community centered. There's a mixture of required and elective activities. Required activities are those that typically are talking about policies, procedures, and regulations of the institution. Elective activities tend to be the evening programs and such that sometimes a student may not necessarily find to be of their liking, or perhaps they're tired and they want to go to bed early. Perfectly reasonable. But then there are some things like pre-major academic advising appointments that students will make once they're on campus with their pre-major academic advisors for Monday. And then on Tuesday morning, they'll actually finalize their fall course registration based off those conversations they've had with their pre-major faculty advisors. And then Monday and Tuesday nights are really prime evenings because that's when we host two student organization and activities fairs. We have close to 500 different recognized student sponsored organizations and activities here on campus, which means that we have to split them up over the course of 2 nights. And so our colleagues in student leadership development work with our clubs and orgs to take over the Sadler Center, and it provides students an opportunity to learn more about activities that perhaps they were involved in previously during high school or prior college experiences, or even try out new things, new clubs and orgs and special interests. And so as you can see, orientation is going to cover the whole gamut of academic, social, and personal transition leading up to that first day of classes, which is, of course, when we hold opening convocation, and we encourage your student to stop by the Sadler Terrace to have their first day of classes picture taken. So a lot of frivolity happens on that first day of classes here at William & Mary. So orientation in a nutshell, it's a busy schedule. The overview schedule is available online. If you'd like to sit down and review that with your student, you're more than welcome. You will note that some sessions are done in rotation, some are done with full class participation in Kaplan Arena, but we cover a wide variety of topics, areas, and interests over the course of those 4 to 5 days to help students find their people, their places, and their things while here at the university. And I'm also going to sort of emphasize the fact that once orientation is complete, technically on that Tuesday evening, STEP sticks with them. I make the joke that STEP is with your student every step of the way until commencement or graduation. And that's very true because alongside opening convocation and our first day of class frivolity fun on the terrace, your student's going to be receiving emails from STEP about things like Weeks of Welcome, that a series of programs that happen across campus, hosted by a variety of different units and offices from the first week of classes up until fall break. Your student's going to hear about the Student Life Neighborhood Block Party that occurs that very first week that we're all together on campus, open to first year and upper level students alike. Your student's going to hear about transition coaching. They're going to meet a transition coach, an upper level student leader who is literally assigned to help them navigate these challenges during the course of their first semester, their first year. And they're going to get a lot of information beyond the first year as we help them think strategically about what are those activities, what are the interests they want to pursue, and what does life look like for them after graduation. And so when a student says, wow, I hear from STEP quite a bit, it's not going to, hopefully it won't come as a surprise because we want to make sure that all students are aware of the bevy of opportunities available to them during the course of their 4 years here. And so we look forward to building a strategic and intentional relationship with your student and supporting you alongside that journey with them. So with that, Heather, we have wrapped up my slides. And so I'm going to stop sharing because I'm sure that there are some lingering questions out there.
There certainly are a few lingering questions. So families, now's the time to go ahead and dive in. For this Q&A feature, I also have upvoting active. So if there's something that interests you, you don't have to submit the question again. You can just upvote that question so I can get a sense of what is popular and what we definitely need to talk about. So we're going to go back in time to move in. So we're going to go back to move in and we're going to start with some of the questions there. So let's dive in and see. For moving, is there a trolley or something similar available that can be borrowed to move any heavy items?
Great question. So at some of our residential locations, there will be large bins or trolleys. I like the word trolley. That's a good word. There are large carts on wheels that can be borrowed. There are a limited number of those carts. So again, this is where sharing it can be caring. And it can be helpful if you have items labeled because sometimes you and the tarp next to you might be able to share a trolley to move things in and especially move up and down an elevator. Not all residential locations will have a move-in cart or a trolley available simply because sometimes some of our buildings do not have elevators and sometimes there are simply too many stairs to navigate with those rollers.
Okay. And I just want to reiterate, there are some carts available, but there likely won't be carts for everyone. So it's best to just
Correct.
go in prepared that you're going to be doing some of that manual labor and lifting and carrying of things. How long can our vehicles stay at the designated parking location, and how do families know what their designated parking location is?
Terrific question. So every move-in route, if you visit the move-in route page, which I know has been linked in the chat, when you open up your designated move-in route through Google Maps, which is where they've been built, you should see a designated location in the map for your initial parking location. And in that case, what you'll do is when you arrive on campus, you can then set your navigation to head to that particular location on campus and you can park there. In most cases, you're looking at a larger parking lot or the parking deck. On campus, we have only about 3 large-scale parking areas on campus, and all 3 of those will be utilized during move-in day by yourselves. You are allowed to stay at that parking location for as long as you need on Thursday. And that will be the location that we're going to ask you to return to on Friday morning in anticipation of family orientation. Heather will talk a little bit more about that next week, but that's a good location for you to sort of drop a pin at so that you can find it over and over again. And I will say our parking locations across campus are fairly central to most of campus life. And so even if you find yourself not in the designated location, we can help you get you to where you need to be.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about the two-car situation. So,
Ooh.
what is the move-in process for two cars? Is two cars allowed in the move-in line?
We do not allow 2 cars to go through the move-in line. If you have a support vehicle joining you in your expedition to campus, we would encourage that support vehicle to avoid the move-in line and then instead navigate directly to your student's residential unloading zone. At that point in time, if there are belongings in that vehicle, they can be unloaded, left on the tarp, and then that vehicle can go ahead and be moved to your destination parking area. Now, and that secondary vehicle is containing individuals and not belongings. We're going to ask that that secondary vehicle moves directly to the parking destination so that you can park and then be on site to help with the unload.
Okay, you cut out there at the end, so I'm going
Oh
to
no.
reiterate it one more time. We have two cars. Two cars cannot enter the move-in line, and you don't want to be in the move-in line, especially if you don't need to be getting keys or checking in, so you don't want to be on Compton Drive. If the second car contains belongings, it should go directly to the unloading zone as indicated on your move-in route. If the second vehicle only contains humans, it should go directly to the final destination parking as designated on your student's move-in route. This same logic applies to Lauren. Talk us through. We show up, we get through the move-in line, we unload, we move in, we need to run to Target and come back. How do we get back and where do we park?
Great question. When you're coming back to campus after moving in, you want to avoid Compton Lot or you want to avoid Compton Drive. And so instead, you will navigate directly. I'm going to recommend, depending on the amount of items you have, in most cases, in that case, you're going to want to return to your parking destination and then bring those belongings back to the residence hall. The only time where that might not be an option for you is if you've purchased a small refrigerator or have a small microwave that you've purchased instead of doing the rental program through Residence Life. In those cases, obviously do unload, please, and then move your vehicle. But you're going to want to avoid coming back through that Compton Drive intersection off of Monticello. So your access points into campus, if you're not familiar, when we talk about access points into campus proper, sort of the internal structure of campus, you're going to see entrances into campus off of Jamestown, Richmond Road, and Monticello. The Monticello entrance into campus is what we're using for new student move-in. Jamestown entrances and Richmond Road entrances are going to be the locations you're keeping an eye out for in terms of direct unloading access.
Looking through our questions. And someone asked if it is allowed for them to leave campus and go make a run. Yes, because you are
Yes.
going to forget things. It may be easier for you to just do a pickup order. We have two Targets in Williamsburg, one Walmart Supercenter, and other stores galore. So if you would rather do a pickup order, in particular, I think about our out-of-state families, that is also an option. We may be a small, quaint little colonial village, but we do have some modern conveniences like a Target. So that's a great tip for our out-of-state families is do a pickup order of some of those big items if you can. So it's certainly allowed. You definitely can. Okay. Looking, we will likely have a trailer. Can a trailer come through the move-in line?
If the trailer is attached to your one vehicle that is also containing your student, it's not an ideal situation. And I would not recommend it if you can avoid it. But in that case, we're not going to have you unhitch your trailer and then move through. What we will probably do is when it comes to unloading, you may get redirected to, depending on where you're headed, you may get redirected into a slightly offside unloading zone location to allow access for others to come through, especially because that will take up a fairly bulky space in the unloading zone process. And there is limited curbside for many of our residential areas. So just be mindful that you may be given some alternate directions while on site. I will say if folks are looking at doing a U-Haul truck or any sort of piece like that, we are going to say a hard no to those. We have a limited clearance in the parking deck. Again, we have limited curbside pieces. And so think strategically about that packing. And I'm also going to share that your student doesn't need everything they're going to need for the semester in this first 6 to 8 weeks that they're here with us. So you don't need to pack winter gear. They don't need to pack everything in their closet. Oftentimes we hear students say, I never even touched that thing, insert item here at all. I don't know why I brought it. So really help your students strategically think through what apparel and what items they might need within those first few weeks, because then other things can be supplemented, things can be changed out. Family weekend's a great time to think strategically about what comes home and what gets brought back. But really sort of think intentionally about what you're packing.
Yep. That parking deck and parking garage clearance is a very important point. So if you have rented a 8-passenger van, you're going to want to check with your rental company about the dimensions of that van. You may be directed to a parking location that you cannot actually park that vehicle. And it is just a good practice if I know some of you are bringing many humans and many things, or many humans and multiple students, but the less you can bring, the better. And if we need a trailer, we might just need to be thinking about, do we bring less or do we rent some other sort of vehicle as opposed to a trailer? Looking at our questions, I don't want to muddy the waters too much. So really, ultimately, I'm going to lead with the answer and then Lauren can fill me in. Some of you are asking about, my student has a pre-orientation program. They're arriving on this day. What do we do? How is this different? All of your students have received specific email instructions about their move-in process. So I don't want to muddy the waters for everybody else about what that move-in process looks like. But I know, because I have been copied on these emails, that your students have received emails about the move-in process if they're participating in Engage specifically. And I know our Residence Life Partners partner with Pathways as well. So they should abide by those instructions that they've received from their pre-orientation program coordinator. It will likely mean that they are not moving through this process that we have indicated. But Lauren, is there anything you want to add there other than read the specific instructions they have received?
That is correct, Heather.
Thank you. Let's touch on that see you later moment. So I have a couple questions there about the see you later moment. And this is where I'm just going to give some words of advice. We have listed on the family orientation schedule that on Thursday, August 20th, you should prepare to say see you later to your student no later than 7 p.m., as they will be engaged in orientation activities at that time. This is where all of you will ask me, Heather, but what about when we're done on Friday at 5:30 from family orientation? Or we're going to be in town until Sunday, so can we take them to brunch to a pancake house? The answer is no. They are going to be involved in their own orientation activities starting as soon as 7 p.m. on Thursday, August 20th, and it is an enrollment requirement for all students. And you may be surprised to know that I do hear when families pull students out of orientation. Orientation is so critical to their success. This is where they're forming community and making connections and learning about all of the resources necessary to be successful at William and Mary. But it's tough. This is a tough moment when you have to say see you later and walk away. So, just to reiterate, you should not plan to spend any meaningful time with your student beyond 7 p.m. on Thursday, August 20th. Now, her asterisk is if something goes wrong, if they forgot their prescription medicine and you have it in the hotel room, you should communicate directly with your student, who should communicate directly with their orientation aide. Now, if this is simply we ran to Target and bought their favorite energy drinks and we want to drop it off at their room, maybe not. But this is really for those instances where they need something critical to their success at William and Mary, and they will need to talk with their orientation aide about where in the schedule is best for you to connect with them. I often advise as well that orientation aides and resident assistants are so excited to meet your students, and they're going to invite them to dinner that night on Thursday at 5 p.m. is when that dinner invitation will come. Someone asked if I can give an overview of how many students take advantage of that opportunity. And what I don't want to do is put pressure on either party, student or family. What's best in this instance is to just have an open-ended conversation with your student. Hey, if your orientation aide wants to take you to dinner on Thursday, is that something that you would want to do? And give them the chance to feel out and decide for themselves if that's something that they want to partake in. They might rather do dinner with you, or they would rather do dinner with their orientation aides, but this is a wonderful opportunity for them to practice really advocating for themselves and letting you know what feels right on move-in day. But Lauren, anything else about the see you later moment that we should talk about?
Heather, I think your point about that dinner time hour is so important, because the conversation that you have with your student prior to orientation might be, oh no, for dinner, I want to do dinner with you. Once your student gets on the floor, once your student starts meeting other people, that tone may shift. And I also don't want families to be taken by surprise if the student is approached by the orientation aide and says, you know what, actually, I do want to go to dinner. I do want to go to dinner with them. Is that okay with you? Right? Like, so there's a little bit of preparation on both sides to just know that you may need to be a little bit of may need to have a little bit of flexibility there, but also those student social connections are so important. They may feel a little bit of FOMO, that fear of missing out, like, oh, I'm looking and seeing about 10 people from my floor are going to dinner. I don't want to be the only one who doesn't. They're not going to be the only one who does not go to dinner with their orientation aides, but they may feel that way, right? Especially in those first few moments of interacting with folks. I do want to point out that the resident assistants and the orientation aides will be circulating through the buildings over the course of move-in day. And so if your family has a commitment to get back to, so if you're looking at your move-in appointment and you know that you need to leave campus by 3 p.m., 4 p.m., 2 p.m., 11 a.m. in order to do something else, perhaps with another sibling or for yourself, please know you're not leaving them all by themselves. The student leaders are around. The student leaders will keep them engaged. They will touch base with them. They will make sure that they are taken care of. If you're there before, if you have to leave before lunch, they will make sure that they get lunch, and we will take care of that lunch for them in the dining hall. We have all of those sort of support mechanisms in place. And so please don't hear that you have to stay until 5, 6, 7 p.m. if that is not what works best for your unique family situation. We're talking in generalities. And also just know that the student leaders will be around. And so if you have questions, they are also open to any questions or concerns that you may have. And they're open and excited to get to know you all as well. And I know that might seem a little bit odd, but our student leaders really are prepared to answer questions from anyone who comes on campus. And they're happy to talk about why they're in OA and why they're excited to work with your student over the course of these next few days.
Yeah. All of that to say, I think Lauren's point that their mind may change in the moment is really real. So I would just mentally prepare yourself to say, see you later by 5 p.m. in case they want to take advantage of that last dinner. Your student may be struggling a little bit with like, I want to do this thing, but we made dinner plans with my family and I don't really know what to do. And they may be afraid to say it. This is a wonderful opportunity for all of you to open the door and give them that option. So just keep that in mind. It may come sooner than you're ready for. And I know that that moment is tough for everyone. So the other piece of advice I would give is move-in day in general. Sit down with them ahead of time and ask them, how can I best support you on move-in day? It's a day where tensions tend to run a little high. Everyone's feeling lots of feelings. Everything is new. There are lots of people, places, things to learn and manage and to get done. And so Lauren and I also always tell everyone to pack their patience on that day. But get ahead of a little bit of that and have a conversation ahead of time about what's the plan for move-in day? Do you want to go to dinner with your orientation aides? How can I best show up for you on move-in day? It's a wonderful idea to just have some of those conversations early. Okay, moving on. We have a few tribe card questions, and I'm going to try and get through as many of these as we can because I know we're running short on time.
Okay.
Can students have a mobile and physical ID or just one or the other?
Only one or the other will be active. And so if your student has chosen to go with the mobile tribe card, that will be the only one that is active. If they request a physical card and they download the mobile sort of in interim before they receive the physical card, once the physical card is printed, that will take over all access requirements and will make the mobile null and void.
Thank you. The other piece, I'm seeing lots of questions about how to download that tribe card. Your students should be looking out for their William and Mary email. They're not going to be able to activate that until August 10th. And that is, of course, pending that your student has submitted and has an approved tribe card photo. The deadline for that is tomorrow, August 7th. I can tell you that Lauren and I will receive a list of everyone who has not accomplished that task. And so they won't be able to download their tribe card on August 10th if they do not have a submitted and approved tribe card photo. But more information about that will be sent to your students' email directly. So this is just my weekly reminder to remind your student to be checking their William and Mary email frequently for these updates, especially as we get closer to move-in. So much important information will be shared directly with them. So now's the time to, it's been summer and maybe they haven't been checking their email, but now is the time. Every day they should be checking that William and Mary email just to see if anything new has come through. Lauren, anything to add to that?
Their William and Mary email also includes information on how to download their mobile ID. There is not a special app required. It should get added to their phone, much like it would a payment system or a wallet. If they are looking to opt out and have a physical card, the form that they need to complete has also been sent to their William and Mary email address. So they need to check their email.
Yep.
And the deadline to complete that is also by tomorrow. So that photo upload and that request for a physical card carry the same deadline.
And that has been sent to your William and Mary's, your student's William and Mary email.
Correct.
Okay. Can you give advice about lunch plans on move-in day? Should we pack a lunch, go off campus, dining hall? Lauren, what do you recommend?
I love a good picnic, but I know that that's not necessarily going to be top of mind for folks. Heather's like,
Pack
that's not,
snacks for
that's
sure. Pack
snacks.
a snack.
Love a little good like side cooler with, if you're an energy drink person, if you need a cold brew. I love move-in day for an opportunity to explore Williamsburg, especially some of the farther reaches of restaurants or dining options. The Duke of Gloucester Street, obviously, great place to sort of park and walk. If you're looking for something a little bit more sit down, would encourage you to navigate down Richmond Road, and the plethora of restaurant options there. But I would use Thursday as an opportunity to get to know Williamsburg, depending on your move-in time frame. If you have an afternoon appointment, go in the morning or go before. If you have a morning appointment, go afterwards. But lots of time to explore, and would encourage you to go off campus for that lunch opportunity.
Okay. When and how do we find out our student's mailing address?
Great question. So your student will each student is assigned what's called a College Station Unit, or a CSU box number. That box number should be found when they log into the housing portal, whether your student is residential or they're living off campus. When they log into the housing portal, they should see their local address listed there. Additional information will be distributed to their student's email address around shipping, mailing, etc., within the next few days. And if you are thinking about mailing something to campus to have available for pickup on move-in day or on that Friday, we're going to ask that you hold those mailings for right now, and not ship for about another week or so, just to make sure that things don't get returned to sender. We need to make sure that the post office is prepared to receive packages, sort them, prime them, and have them ready to go. So sort of put that on your to-do list for maybe end of next week, beginning of the following.
Yep. Um, okay, we are out of time, but I do want to ask Lauren one last question, and you can go anywhere you want with this, which is what is your overall advice for families as they are preparing for move-in day? We have talked a lot about the nuts and bolts and logistics of move-in day, but any other advice that you would offer?
Mm, I think my advice for move-in day for families and supporters is to keep in mind that it's a transition for you too. I think it's really easy for us to focus in on those nuts and bolts. What have we packed? Do we have things downloaded? Are credentials ready? And then I think what often I hear is the see you later happens, and families sort of look around and say, well, what do we do now? So I think taking some time to emotionally prepare yourselves. And if not, if you're like, well, I'm not an emotional person, this isn't going to hit me that hard. I think it's just sort of keeping in mind that you need to stay present and in the moment. It's really easy to think we have 5 minutes, let's go. Yes. And take a deep breath, survey the landscape, and start unpacking, right? We are so conditioned to be rule followers, and yes, we have rules that we want you to follow, but not without sort of being mindful of all that is happening around you. And so highly encourage you to also use move-in day as a chance to meet other families around you, say hello, introduce yourself, get to know the family of your student's roommate. Introduce yourself to others on the hall, talk to the resident assistants, talk to the staff that you meet, talk to the OAs. But keeping in mind that this is an experience for you too, and we want you to take full advantage of what it means to be a member of this community for yourselves, separate from your student's identity. So they can coexist. You can have a William and Mary experience, and they can have a William and Mary experience, and hopefully they're both positive, and hopefully move-in day is just the start of your journey within this community, and getting to know others.
Wonderful advice, Lauren. I think if I had to offer some advice to families for move-in day, it is to be present. Take all of the photos. So take a photo when they wake up and they're feeling groggy and they're not ready to leave the hotel room. Take a photo in the move-in line when they get their key. Oh, That's an important piece of advice, really at the tail end, which is your student is going to be the one doing all the things in the move-in line. So make sure they're prepared for that window to roll down and offer their ID, talk to students, talk to the residence life staff who's going to be giving them their key. Okay, all of that to say, but take a photo of that moment. Take a picture of the pile of belongings outside of the car. Ask the neighbor across the hall to take a selfie with you or a picture of the whole family when the room is set up. It can be so easy to get into the like, we have to do all of these things that you don't remember, that these are memories that you all are going to have for years and years to come. So pause and take a second to capture those memories and what they feel like. The other piece, again, just bring some patience with you. I know you want your students' move-in day to be perfect, but it probably won't be. There's probably going to be something that you forgot or they forgot, or you call me panicked from Compton Drive because you don't have the QR code downloaded. It has happened before. And just a reminder that we're going to meet you with grace and empathy and understanding because we want your student and you to have a wonderful experience. So when you're interacting with our student volunteers and our staff, we hope that you will extend the same level of grace and empathy to them as well. We're all excited for you to be here. If you walk in the room and something is amiss, find a staff member. They're more than happy to assist you. We know that emotions will be running high, but just keep in mind that all of our students are volunteers for the most part, and everyone's just excited for you to be there. And then I think my last piece of advice is I know we put a lot of pressure on the see you later moment and what that's going to feel like and when that's going to happen. But just keep in mind that there is a beyond the see you later moment. We call it see you later because you will see them later at family weekend, at fall break, at Thanksgiving break. And just remember that, like, real practical advice, who's driving the car when you leave campus probably shouldn't be the crier, because the leaving campus part is the hard part. The see you later moment may come and go, and it may be easier than you think, but the getting in the car and driving away is the really tough part. So think about what comes after for all of you as a family. We can't wait to see you on move-in day. I will be in that move-in line. I will be there, and I really, really can't wait to meet all of you just a few weeks from now. Next week, we're going to be covering family orientation in depth, parking, schedule, logistics, everything you need to know, but we know that this is what's top of mind for you right now. If you have any additional questions, please just send them to families@wm.edu. We are happy to help, and I will see you on the next one. Thank you so much, Lauren, and goodbye, everybody.